Creative Brain Candy by creators for creators.
You're listening to Simply Stogies, a monthly podcast dedicated to the cigar enthusiast. Light up a stogie, sit back and relax while James brings you along on his journey as a new cigar smoker. Simply Stogies will review cigars, discuss topics that cigar aficionados find important, and will probably learn a few things along the way. Now, here's your host of Simply Stogies, James.
Welcome to Simply Stogies. I am your host, James. This week, we have a special guest with us for this episode. It's Tommy Zman. Tommy, welcome to Simply Stogies.
Thanks. Good to be here in Iowa eating corn. I'm actually in New Jersey, but, it's
Right.
close enough.
Yeah, not close enough. We also have soybeans. That's our other big one.
That's great, dude. I'm happy for you.
No, it's terrible.
We have tomatoes and corn.
Well, and Bon Jovi.
Actually, screw him. We have a blueberries too. So just so everybody knows.
Wait, didn't you have Springsteen as well?
I hate that son of a bitch.
I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of exports that come out of
I know
Jersey.
there's a lot of people that like Springsteen. I just have always disliked his music. And there's a couple other things, but I'm not going to get into.
Yeah, no. All right, so we'll come back to you in just a second. But before I jump into this great interview with Tommy, we're going to talk about a lot of different stuff. He's a wealth of knowledge. And so this is an interview that I'm super looking forward to. But before we jump into it, I want to invite you to go to oxfordcigarcompany.com and use coupon code SimplyStogies. Use that coupon code. You'll get 10% off your entire purchase, no matter what it is. oxfordcigarcompany.com. Coupon code Simply Stogies, 10% off. It's a deal. It's a steal. Go forth and buy cigars.
Hi, I'm Jason.
And I'm Rob.
And we're from Smoking and Drinking in Space.
Whoa, hold on. I thought this was a commercial for Smoking and Drinking in Capes, a superhero podcast from a couple guys who...
No. This is the commercial for Smoking and Drinking in Space, a sci-fi podcast
No,
from...
they don't want to listen to a couple guys who think they know sci-fi. It's old hat. We've been doing it for years.
At least it's not shallow and vapid like that show with a couple guys who wish they had powers. I mean, what's up with that?
You're shallow and vapid. I'm just going to eat my fudge now.
And you're an idiot. And you can catch both of us on Smoking and Drinking in Capes and Smoking and Drinking in Space at creativebraincandy.com, along with many other great podcasts.
Tommy, welcome to the show. That was it. That's all I got to do. That's all the shilling for today. I promise.
Oh, we're done? All right, man. Thanks. It was a good show. Good show.
All right. We'll talk to you later, Tommy. Let's talk about how you got into cigars, and then we'll kind of talk about how you broke into the biz, as they call it, and we'll go from there. But when did you start smoking cigars?
I think around 1995. It was at my brother-in-law's wedding. Now, I owned an advertising agency in northern New Jersey, right outside of Manhattan, about a half hour outside of New York. And I actually started doing work for Cigar Aficionado. This is a long time ago. It was direct mail work. And my dad had always been a big cigar smoker, but he smoked crappy cigars like Optimos and stuff like that. And I'm sorry I called them crappy, but to me they are.
They're crappy. Yeah.
So when I started doing work for Cigar Aficionado, I had to try cigars. And it just so happened that my brother-in-law's wedding was coming up that I was in, and we smoked cigars at the table, the first time for me. And I absolutely loved my first cigar. I mean, I loved it. And then I just went nuts and fell in love with it. And,
do you remember what that first one was that you fell in love with?
Partagas number 10, which is kind of a big cigar. And probably kind of full for a first-time smoker.
Yeah, for a first
but
time.
I don't know why. Well, I always loved the smell of cigars because I smelled them all the time. Because my dad would smoke in his old Volkswagen while we drove around when I was a kid. And the whole car stunk like cigars.
Yeah.
But what's funny is years later, when I really got into cigars, I got my dad into really good cigars and changed his way of life for sure.
And his wallet.
Really did. It really did. So,
Well, that's good. I mean, so you're really a disciple of the cigars, and you go forth and you spread the word and you get people out of, like your dad, out of bad cigars. But I want to go back even further. So you said you owned an advertising agency. So you've really been, and please don't take this as derogatory because I don't mean it to be, but you've been a content creator, quote unquote, for a very long time.
yeah, no, a real long time. Because I worked in an agency before I had my own agency, and I had 12 people. It was a small agency, but we were, like I said, about a half hour outside of Manhattan. But I did major corporate work as a third-tier agency. But third-tier agencies can make a lot of money because we do a lot of the stuff, we did a lot of the stuff that the major agencies won't handle. I mean, I'm serious. A one-word type change on a brochure, they'd get charged $1,500 for.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
But,
that's a lot.
Yeah. But it was a good life. And that's how I got into cigars. I did some direct mail work for Cigar Aficionado, and of course, started tasting and testing and then just got into it like crazy overnight. And, one thing I didn't share with you is, if people know me, what happened was around 1998, I actually created my own cigar magazine, a full-color, beautiful, glossy magazine called The Back Room. And Lou Rothman of JR was shown the magazine, and he loved it. And so I went in and presented the whole concept to him, and he loved it. And he ended up selling like 30,000 copies of my magazine.
Wow.
through JR. And thus, I developed an incredible relationship with Lou Rothman, who was an absolute genius. I don't think he could survive in today's environment the way he did things, but the way he did things when he did things, he was a master, an absolute master.
Why don't you think he could survive in today's environment?
I think the one thing that I think that people had a problem with Lou, and let me say, a lot of people loved him, and I loved him. I really did. He was so good to me, and he gave me such a big break to work in the business. And I worked with JR for like 5 years, not for them, but with them as a freelancer. And I did a lot of stuff for them. I did their blog. I did a lot of videos. He took me on a week-long trip with General Cigar on a private jet out of Morristown, New Jersey, to the Dominican Republic and to Honduras at the old Villazon factory. So what the hell did you ask me? I went off on a tangent, I think.
Why would he not survive in today's environment?
He had a problem when he had Cigar Magazine, which I was a writer for, and I think towards the end, he told me that me and Steve Saka were his two top writers, and that trying to think what I was going to say. Now I forgot. This is terrible. Let me think. He didn't like the new cigar makers. He liked all the old guys. He liked the Olivas. He liked, Plasencia. He liked all those guys. But all these new guys were coming up, and he didn't really even know who they were. And I think a lot of the newer smokers kind of didn't like that. But so I think if he was still around today, I don't know if he would cover them. I know he liked Christian Aroa a lot when he was at Camacho because he knew his dad.
Yeah.
But as far as, if you could probably name a litany of new guys, he wouldn't have known and didn't care.
Well, that's interesting because he was around during the first cigar boom, and now they say we're in the second cigar boom, and it's different, but there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of new manufacturers, a lot of new cigars popping up. Do you think? I mean, okay, so you had a great relationship with him. Do you think that some of these boutique brands, these very small brands, deserve coverage?
I guess it depends on the brand that you're talking about. I think they all do if they're well-made cigars. If they're good and they're well-made, yes, smaller ones deserve to be talked about. Absolutely. I mean, I know you've had Nick from LH Cigars, and he's a perfect example. He makes a great cigar.
He really does.
He really does, and I think his Maduro's freaking phenomenal. And he's in many hundreds of shops in the U.S., but he wants to be in more. But I think it would be a service to cover a guy like that because he makes a great cigar, but a lot of people don't know who he is.
Yeah, I've had him on the show a couple of times now, and I really do like his product. I think it's one of the better products out there, and he gets no coverage, almost no coverage from cigar media. I have a really hard time with Cigar Aficionado. I don't typically call them out on the podcast. I've written a couple of pieces on them, but when you were covering cigars, you were doing reviews and what else were you doing with JR as far as content wise, putting it out? Like give my listeners a little taste of what you would put out in a month.
Well, Lou, I remember Lou Rothman asked me to come to lunch, and he said, this is a while ago. He said to me, "Are you familiar with blogs?" I said, "Yeah, very." He goes, "I want you to write ours." And it was JR Cigars with the Z-Man, and I used to write it every day, but I didn't necessarily cover cigars that much. I just covered kind of the lifestyle, and he loved it. He really did. It was when he left the company that they ended it. And let me just say, when they ended it that day, I called Famous and met with them. And then within a week, they hired me on to work with them for over 6 years.
So you've been in and around the industry for quite a while.
Yeah, I have. And the cool thing is, since I do what I do, I've met like almost everybody in the business, probably 90% of the key players, and have become personal friends with many of them. Guys that they're on my cell phone that I can press a button and call them and they'll answer. And I always loved that because they treated me very friendly, of course, because I always covered them in a very positive way.
Sure.
But they generally, I mean, for real, became friends with me. And I'm talking Nick Perdomo and his wife Janine are just the two of the wonderful people that treated me so well. Pete Johnson, Eric Espinosa, Jose Blanco. I could go on, Steve Saka. I could go on and on with the names, but it was cool meeting them because the one thing cool about meeting all these cigar guys and getting to know them is every one of them handled their business like totally different than the next guy.
Yep.
The way they handled their business. And I always found that absolutely fascinating. And when I got to, we didn't even get here yet, but if you don't know, guys, I worked for Famous for 6 years. I started a Facebook Live show that we did in my office with the writers, and every week I had a different cigar guy on, and it was so neat learning how they did business, because the way, like I said, Nick Perdomo does business is totally different than the way, say, Rafael Nadal does business or whatever. But nobody's wrong. They all have their own ways of doing it.
Yeah, and I agree, because it's interesting in an industry that hasn't really changed in hundreds. I mean, you're rolling dead leaves. It can't change that much, can it? Everybody, like, there's a way of doing business that has been done for quite a while, whether it's the handshake, but just the marketing and the thought processes behind it and the creativity behind it is different from manufacturer to manufacturer, blender to blender. And I think that adds a lot of uniqueness to the different products. And I like to see, kind of how the sausage is made, and I hope my listeners do too. And that's kind of what we try to do here, is highlight what, the personalities behind the cigars, because personality is what makes the cigar, isn't it?
I think initially, the initial sell of it, but the real thing is that people have to light it up and smoke it, and do they like it? And you never know. I think a great example was Nick Melillo. He left Drew,
yep.
and a lot of regular people didn't know who he was. Us cigar smoking guys knew, but a lot of the regular guys maybe not have known. But once they tried a cigar, and he came out with Charter Oak, which is an incredibly delicious cigar, but super cheap. And that's how I thought he really got on the map. But then now he's created some incredible cigars.
Just incredible stuff. Yeah. It's fun to watch the progression, the evolution of some of these guys. And even just to look back and see where they were and where they're at.
Yeah. Like I said, I know Nick Perdomo very well, and he talks about that all the time. And, it was maybe before COVID started, and I did a dinner with him at Famous. And I said to him, when did you realize that you were truly successful? And he said, not until like a month or two ago. I go, are you kidding me? Because he's one of the top selling cigar makers in the world. And he actually meant it. He goes, I never felt that way until about a month or two ago, that I was totally, really successful. I thought that was kind of weird, but
When did you realize you were successful, Tommy?
When I came out of the womb, I think I was. I think I knew. I just had a feeling
right away. Yeah.
Well, it depends. What am I successful at? I was very successful in the advertising business, and then I thought I was when I was writing for Cigar Magazine, and that's what I forgot to mention before. JR owned Cigar Magazine, and that was a great magazine. It really was. And it was so well done, and it was so different than Cigar Aficionado. And I became really one of the top writers there, and got tons of emails every week about, my articles and stuff. And I started to believe, I was pretty good.
But so what happened? Like, because it sounds like you really enjoyed it. It's like you have a passion for this kind of stuff, because you had the Cigar Magazine, you worked with JR, and then you worked with Famous. Like, you obviously have a passion for it.
I have a tremendous passion for it. I mean, when I first went into Famous, before I started there, they showed me the new online cigar magazine they were working on, and said, if you work here, you'll be an editor here. So I became an editor and a writer, and wrote some of the most creative stuff I've ever written. And my best article ever was about the smoke Nazis. I don't know if you had gotten to see it. And it was about my neighbor, the smoke Nazi, and it was pretty much a true story. And I believe to this date it's gotten more hits than any article they've had. So when I wrote for Cigar Magazine for JR, and I told you, like, say Steve Saka and I were very well known, but our styles were like on the other end of the earth from one another.
yes, they were.
Steve could write about black tobacco and like a scientist reading this shit, and I'm going, holy shit. I said, if I ever write this stuff, somebody will have to kill me. I couldn't even imagine. I wrote the funny stuff. Everything I wrote usually had an edge to it and a lot of humor in what I wrote. And Lou loved that. And Lou Rothman actually told me that I wrote most like him than anybody else.
Yeah. If you go to your website, which is TommyZman.com. Is that right? Did I get that right? Yeah. Tommy Zman.
TommyZman.
There you go. It's like, you can see a lot of the things that he has done. He has a lot of videos up. Like, you've produced videos. You have a lot of audio commercials that you've done. And they're all, I mean, there are some serious ones, but there are a lot of funny ones as well. Like, do you consider yourself a comedian?
A humorist.
A humorist? Okay.
That's a better word. Yeah, no, I've always considered myself a humorist. And, you know, as you said, there's some stuff that's not humorous, but it's still, how do I say it? The way I talk now is the way I talk when I get off here and talk to my friends.
Right.
It's no different. It's me. When I'm interviewing or being with people or writing about cigars or writing about anything, it's me. It's how I am, which I think is cool.
It is.
I think Lou Rothman really liked that because I wrote from the heart, and you know, he took me, like I've said before, to Dominican Republic and Honduras for like a little over a week, and that was so cool. I mean, that was such an amazing trip. But he told me it was going to change my whole world. He said, "You think you know about cigars? Wait till you do this." And he was absolutely right. I got to go to every single phase of the business, every single phase, and there were many phases, from planting seeds to, you know, picking stuff to making stuff to rolling stuff to whatever. I got to see every phase of it. It was really cool. And the people at the factories treated me incredible. And I remember saying that to Lou, that how incredible everybody treated me. He goes, "Yeah, because you work for me, you idiot." So, but that was Lou.
That's funny. All right. So you worked for JR, you worked for Famous, and that was about 11 years together, right? So there was about 5-6 years at each one. So there was something that happened. And honestly, Tommy, I'm not 100% familiar with it. So I'm going to let you speak to it because I don't want to speak out of turn and I don't want to say something that's not accurate. But something happened at the end of your run with Famous, and it was news a couple of years ago. And then it just kind of, nobody heard anything about it. I want to give you the opportunity to set the record straight and tell everybody exactly what happened, what the outcome of it was, and we'll kind of go from there.
The woman that was the manager of the retail store at Famous, let me just say, they ended my contract at Famous. And I think that was just a money-saving ploy. And that was really the reason. And that kind of broke my heart because I loved working there. And I had everybody there I was just such friends with. And I thought I was really good friends with the manager of the retail store, who sent me an email and said, "Oh, we're going to miss you so much." And then I replied, I joked to her. I won't get into what the jokes were, but it's all in writing and it's all on record what was said. And later that day, I get a call at night from the police department in Easton that I sent this girl and they want to arrest me and they want me to come in the next day and arrest me. I'm like, what? And I was blown away. And she turned me in to the police and told them that I said I was going to come into Famous and shoot everyone.
Wow.
Now, A, I never said it. B, everybody knows I never said it. C, there's no record of it anywhere because this whole thing was done through a fax, or actually through phone. So, they arrested me, and the police department arrested me. They had me in lockup. I had to appear before a judge, and the judge was really nasty to me. And I thought he was going to throw me away. I mean, I'm serious. And he let me go, but then it wasn't until like a week or so later, I found out from my lawyer that she told the police that I said I was going to come in and shoot everyone. And this was made up. So when I had my first court meeting, which I had a whole bunch of them, which sucked.
Right.
When I had my first court meeting, my lawyer said to the arresting officer, "Why have you said that Tommy Zman was going to come in and shoot everyone? And the officer said in front of the judge, that was a big mistake that should have never been in the police report. And my lawyer looks at the judge and goes, I want that stricken right now. And it got stricken right there and then. And that's why the good news is I have been found completely not guilty. All charges have been dropped, and all charges have been erased from the Pennsylvania court system as if they never existed.
So not only were all charges dismissed out of hand, just like this is all wrong, we're dismissing all charges, this should have never happened, but they actually expunged your record. They're like, it's as if it had never happened.
Yep. And took like 2 years. And that's really, it took an extra 6 months because of COVID, which really sucked.
Yeah, well,
because even the courts were shut for like months.
Right.
Shut down. But a lot of people knew when it happened 2 years ago. And the cool thing is, I'll tell you the cool thing, that at least I'd say a dozen of the top cigar manufacturers not only believed me completely, but supported me completely and supported me publicly and to my face. And I'm talking about the Perdomos and Espinosa and Jose Blanco and Christian Aroa was phenomenal to me. I mean,
good.
He actually got my phone number from somebody and called me the day after it was announced. And he goes, I don't believe a word of this. He goes, I'm on your side. Whatever you need, I can help you.
Wow.
And I got so much of that from all the top cigar makers. I felt so good about that. And a lot of the people online were posting, oh, did you see what Tommy Zman did? And so many of my followers and fans would write, there's no way he did this. If you've ever known Tommy, there's no chance he did this. And I was very grateful to all those people. So I am an innocent guy, 100% innocent. And it was kind of tough because, like, when it first happened, one of the real people who really believed me were my friends at Alec Bradley. And Alan Rubin was so good, and John Lipson, who's the head of their marketing, were so good that they actually hired me. And I worked, I did a bunch of great freelance work for them until a damn COVID took over.
Yeah.
Which really screwed that up. But I had such support, and it was really cool. So I haven't done much in the cigar industry over the past 2 years, and I would love to start redoing. So I can't tell you who, but I've actually had a couple of discussions with a couple major players, and
Good.
I have some really good possible stuff happening. But if any cigar guys are watching, come on, I'm here.
He's here.
Use
Tommy
me.
Z-Man, he's waiting for your call.
You can use me. I'm very usable.
So that's good. That story has a happy ending because it did really affect how you were able to do business in the industry that you're passionate about. But it sounds like you got some things going and you had a lot of support. But that you didn't have a lot of support elsewhere, did you? Like in the media?
Well,
because there was an article written when this happened 2 years ago from a certain outlet, media outlet.
Well, it was actually written by the local paper in Pennsylvania. And unfortunately, Half Wheel and Charlie Minato picked up on it and wrote a piece about me. And that I was arrested and fired and blah, 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 blah. And I had to wait till this was cleared. So very recently, I contacted Charlie and I asked him if he would please write an article saying I've been cleared. And he felt it wasn't best to write an article. He just put at the end of the existing article that the judge dropped all charges. Well, that article's 2 years old. Who the hell's going to look that up?
Exactly.
Kind of disappointed. I have nothing against Charlie and the place, but what happened is if you go to my Wikipedia and look me up, that article shows up like third or fourth on the page, on the first page. And I figured if he writes even the smallest piece and say, hey, I've been found completely innocent, that's going to show up on the first page and that'll override that article.
Yeah.
And he felt it was better to do what he did. So kind of disappointed. Someone that was really helped was Cooper was really helpful. So he wrote something really nice about me. But, it would have helped if Half Wheel had written another article and they chose not to. So what am I going to do?
Well, it's interesting because you have been in the on the media side of the cigar industry for a long time. And while you may not have been a quote unquote, and I use this term in the loosest possible way, while you may not have been a journalist, you know how things are supposed to go in the media realm. If someone takes the time to write an article that talks about you being arrested for whatever reason and charges pressed against you for whatever reason, and then those charges eventually are dropped and everything's dismissed and your record's expunged, which they don't typically do a whole lot. Like, that's not a normal thing. You would imagine that again, in the loosest possible way, a journalist with any integrity at all would write a second article that would then, kind of set the record straight.
I don't know. He just felt that this was the best way of doing it. It's his publication. I can't argue with him. But the problem is, he added this, I was released of all charges at the end of an article from 2 years ago.
Yeah, no one's
going to look up an article from 2 years ago. That's probably several thousand articles ago for Half Wheel. So I'm not pissed. I don't dislike him or anything, but I'm major disappointed because it really would have helped me a lot. But you know what?
You're more gracious than I would be.
Yeah. You know what? I have to move forward. And, what can I say? I have to move forward. That's
Right.
all I can say.
That's all you can say. All right. And I think that's a good way to put it. So let's move forward. You call yourself a humorist. I would say comedian. You have been doing this for a long time, and you
I'm also a ex porn star. So just
okay, excellent. You've been a comedian in the current climate of PC. Do you see that PC culture kind of sneaking into the cigar area? And how does that affect your humor, your unique brand of your unique way of looking at things and kind of, putting a funny spin on it?
Well, I think the only way that PC gets into it is from people that are just totally anti-smoking. That's the only way. And I've had to deal with that for years. I worked with Glenn Loop from
CRA
for a long time. Him and I are close. I've worked with him, and I've worked with some of the other cigar makers on it. And it's a pain in the ass because they hate smoking and they'll go after us. But for the most part, I don't think it's changed what I've done and how I've approached anything, because it really is a select market, talking to the cigar fans. But it's become a very big market. I mean, cigar smoking's pretty big right now. Very, very popular, very big. And the cool thing about it is it's from beginners to hard-nosed guys for 40 years and everybody in between. So there's something for everybody. So I don't think it affects me too much of what I have to say and how I go about saying it.
So you never think twice before you post anything or before you, make content or produce a spot. You don't.
Well, it depends on who it's for. And then I always ask for guidelines or permission, what I can say, how far I can go, how far I can push. Like even before we went on, I asked you, can I swear?
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
And the answer was fuck yeah. So, but I'll always find that out, but it's not really a problem for me.
That's good. So do you just not let it affect you, or are you able to kind of turn it on, turn it off, and kind of dip into, this area of humor, depending on who your audience is?
So not what affect me?
Like the PC culture. Do you just not?
Oh no, dude, I fucking despise the PC culture. I despise, what they've done and how they've come after people.
Yep.
And how certain comedians have been canceled. Seinfeld and who was it? Chris Rock won't ever do colleges again. Because of the PC backlash they've gotten when they've been on stage, and people standing up and screaming and walking out. And I think anybody who's into cigars probably feels the same way. I would gotta say 95% or more feel the same way. It's just my own guess, 80 to 90.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think? Because I feel the same as you do. I think it is probably 85, 90% of cigar smokers, despise cancel culture, despise PC culture. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is that cigar smokers feel that way, specifically cigar smokers?
I think because 80% of cigar smokers are right wing. And I'm guessing at about people who follow me, and I've had many thousands of people that follow me, about 20% are left wing. So we know how the right wing handles the situations we're talking about, and hates the PC culture and the cancel culture and stuff. But the guys who on the left who follow me are admittedly left wing, but a lot of them shoot guns and smoke cigars, and so they don't give me a hard time on the stuff I believe in. But then again, even on social media and stuff, I don't talk politics too often.
Right.
It got me in trouble a few years back.
How so?
When I was working with Famous, I made some political comments on my own page, and I would have people that would call Famous and complain and want me fired.
Oh, Jesus. How many years ago was this?
Probably 7-8 years ago.
That's like right at the very, very, very beginning of cancel culture.
I would say so.
Yeah.
But I had 2 instances where people wanted me fired. And one guy was a preacher, and I had to write this incredible apology letter to him, and killed me to do that.
Oh my God.
But they actually
crazy.
This guy called 20 people till he could get to the owner of Famous and wanted me fired.
So you had to sit down and write an apology letter like you're a 10-year-old who just broke the window of the neighbors playing baseball.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I would say so. Yeah, it was horrible. But I knew once I wrote that letter, he'd be cool, and he was totally fine with it, and said he forgave me and all that. And I was like, oh God, thank you. You forgive me, you fucking scumbag, asshole, preacher bullshit. But for the most part, guys who are left-wing politically, who are my fans, don't give me a hard time. Because they like what I do, and they like what I stand for with the cigar culture. And, the cigar culture led me into, one of the things I think you wanted to talk about was the Cro-Magnation.
Yeah, I did. I was just getting ready to bring that up.
Cro-Magnation, for you guys, that's CROMAG Nation, is a page on Facebook that you should go to and sign up for. And every day it's just guy posts. And guy posts, whether it's cigar smoking or muscle car driving, red meat eating, pussy loving. and I don't mean that from a sexual, like an outward sexual standpoint. Like I don't do any porn or anything like that, but
right.
Just I do put pictures of very, very incredibly hot looking women and write funny things. I always write about that they write for me, that they work for me, and they have to stay late and I stay late with them, and that's because I'm such a good boss. But and then anything else you can think of that's anti-cancel culture, and it's totally politically incorrect. So if you guys want to have some fun every day, go to Cro-Mag Nation on Facebook and join up. And I've been doing it for about 5-6 years, I think. Maybe.
Was this your answer to cancel culture? Well, if you're going to cancel me for this bullshit, let me show you exactly.
No, I you know what it actually was more of that I was doing a lot in the cigar biz. I guess I was with JR back then. And I said, you know what? If I want to grow bigger, I got to get outside of cigars as well. So I touched on the whole man's man thing. And that's the best way of putting it.
Yes.
Men's man, men's men. And cigar smoking is just part of it. But whiskey drinking and beer drinking is part of it. And barbecue is part of it. And red meat is part of it. And wicked cars and, you name it. Anything that guys love.
Yeah, it would be, I would liken it to Tim Allen without the cocaine.
Thanks.
Like it's not power tool driven, but it's everything else that men love driven. It's beautiful women.
Yeah, I think it is everything men's love. And, every once in a while, I'll print something political, but it'll be funny. And the last one I printed, I don't even remember what it was, but oh my God, the liberals went fucking nuts and came down on me so bad. Yet I had like 1,000 likes on the post. I mean, 1,000 likes. That's a lot of likes.
That's a lot of likes
for a Facebook post.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say to them. They went nuts and calling me the worst things. And I'm like, dude, just 1,000 likes. That's all I can say.
Right. Like, yeah, that's a lot for a single post, 1,000 likes.
So, is it obvious I'm a conservative? Sure it is. But I try not to talk about politics anymore and post stuff. I do once in a while. Not a big fan of our president. I don't think, God, how many left-wing people are not a fan of our president?
They haven't been a fan of any president since Obama. I
mean, it's dropping under 40%.
Yeah.
Holy crow. I don't want to really talk about that, but I think that I do. If you agree with me, I think the cigar culture is 80 to 90% conservative. Would you agree with that or no?
I think that it is. I think it's also changing because we have more women coming into the hobby. I think that the numbers are changing. But here's what I've noticed, because I travel all over the country to do this kind of stuff. And when I go to lounges, I always ask them. I say, we're so divided as a nation. Like, how do you keep that out? How do you keep the peace in an ever divisive, environment? And they always say, we just keep politics out of the lounge. We don't turn it on. We don't watch the news. None of that. Like, it's sports, it's movies, it's music. It's literally anything but politics. I think people are tired of talking about politics.
I think so. They really are. But they're
and this is why I like what you do so much, Tommy, because it's humor driven. It's like, how long can you be mad? Like, can you wake up every day just angry and shaking your fist at the sky?
Well, there are people that are, that.
I do, but
you're right. I think my goal for over a decade has been to bring a sense of joy to people, no matter what. If it's an article I write, a video I've done, radio commercials. I used to do all the radio ads, write and do the reads for Famous on Sirius XM, or just on Facebook or Twitter. I try to get away from the stuff that drives people crazy every day. And if I do talk about it, I'll do it in a humorous way that gets people laughing.
Yeah.
So it's just the way I've always been.
And I want to talk about that for just a second, because you're like beyond being just like a content creator. And again, like you did this at a professional level. Like I am a content creator. I create content at a very, very low level. That's what I do. I set the bar low. Nobody has high expectations. That's why I succeed. But you did this at a high level. You did it professionally, but you're also a voice actor, because in some of those commercials that you've done, like you do all the voices for them.
Yeah. And I love doing that. I absolutely love it. Yeah, it's a very big mix of stuff that I've done. And, even if work that I try to get even now, it doesn't necessarily have to be cigars. I love it if it is cigars. Like I said, I have a couple big time guys in the cigar business that are interested in working with me, especially because they know I'm innocent now and everything's cleared. And I just love it. I really do love cigars. But if it involves other stuff, like for 2.5 years, I just wrote for the products Copperfit that have Brett Favre commercials and stuff.
Yes.
I wrote articles for their website for the last 2.5 years. I made a lot of money doing it, and they loved my writing.
Are you still writing for them?
No, they've kind of canceled the website they were doing, so my gig was up.
So I can make Brett Favre sending dick pic jokes, or no?
Sure, you can.
No, I don't have one. I was just
Why not?
Sure.
But
I'm not nearly as witty or clever as you are.
Oh, thank you.
That would be why.
That makes me feel so good. Brett Favre and Jerry Rice were the two guys for them, and I really love doing it. Sucks that I'm not doing it anymore, but like I said, doesn't have to be cigars. And I can write very serious, which I have because of my advertising background. But I like doing the fun stuff, as you can tell.
Here's what I'd like to see, Tommy, if I could make a request for some content later on down the road. I would like to see you and Steve Saka on a sitcom of some sort, where he plays the straight man and you're...
We've actually done that, and I've interviewed him before. And I always try to get him to laugh. And,
do you succeed?
Yeah, I do. Because Steve really is a good guy. A lot of people think that he's so serious and too serious, but he's got a great fun side to him. He's a regular guy. He really is. He's just so brilliant when it comes to tobacco, almost on a scientific level. And my head has a hard time with that. It really does, especially when I've interviewed him. But like one time at the, if you've ever heard of the Cats Festival, which they have, it's a group called Cats on Facebook, and they have their own page and everything. And they had an outing a couple years ago that for 2 days, Steve and I sat right next to each other pushing cigars. And the conversation was fantastic. Yes, I would do. Steve's a great guy. He really is. And I'll tell you what, he makes amazing cigars.
Yes, he does.
Crap. I mean, his very first ones when he first did Sober Mesa, I was blown away. And now he's taking it just to another level. And I love that David Lafferty hooked up with him, who is another incredibly good guy. I got to think that 95% of the cigar guys are really good guys. I mean, really good guys.
I would agree with that.
Pete Johnson.
Great dude. Great dude.
I went to a cigar shop in Bloomfield, New Jersey, Sanja's, which is a very well-known cigar shop in North Jersey and New York area. And Pete came to it, and for 3 hours, we stood next to each other and talked about everything but cigars.
Yep.
We talked about, because he was in a rock band. He had hair down to his waist, hard rock band. And I love hard rock and heavy metal. And he loves hockey. We talked about hockey. I love hockey for hours. And we didn't talk about cigars, and he loves that. But like I said, each of these guys is so different. But no matter who I'm with, whether it's Nick Perdomo or even Rocky Patel or, you name them. I talk to them on the way I'm talking to you, just on a one-to-one, down-to-earth level. And, what's his name? Like Ernesto Carrillo, I had never met him before a couple years ago. And he came over to Famous. And I did a half-hour interview with him on video. And what a wonderful, wonderful man.
Yeah.
And there are some people I've talked to in the cigar industry that just love him. I mean, love him. And a week later, his cigar was named #1 of the year by Aficionado. And actually, I had the same thing happen with Rafael Nadal. I interviewed him at Famous on camera. And a week later, he was like the #1, non-Cuban cigar, #2 cigar with his aging room.
Yeah.
So I got that going for me.
So let me ask you this. Before we get out of here, I ask everybody this. We have a little bit of fun. How many cigars do you have in your personal collection right now?
500 million.
That's a lot.
All right, maybe not. Okay. Probably about 1,500. I have an end table humidor, and then a bunch of other smaller,
I want an end table humidor.
It's really cool. I got it years ago. I think I got it around, maybe about 15 years ago. And it's really nice. It has like the glass door and the glass top. And it was a Vigilant humidor, and they make really good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vigilant makes beautiful stuff.
Yeah, I want one of those.
Yeah, it was a bit cheaper than it is today. But and then I have a lot of stuff just in storage and in containers and stuff.
Yep.
But
what's smoking really good for you right now? Like, what's the one cigar if you're gonna pick up just one? Which one?
Just one.
Like, if you don't want to, put anybody.
No, you know what? I always tell people when they ask me like what my favorite cigar is. That's so hard to answer, because like especially when I worked for Famous, I was smoking a lot of cigars, and from the mildest to the heaviest and everything in between. Yep. And I got to enjoy so much stuff. It's almost impossible for me to name. I mean, I do love Padron Anniversarios, but they're way too fucking expensive. And they're just incredible.
Yeah.
I love the Maduro, but I also couple cigars Alec Bradley makes. I really like a lot. The Black Market Esteli I love. And I love that cigar because it's not overly complex. It's just so tasty. And that's what I love about sticks. But like I said, I could probably name 20 now. I can't name one. I just can't.
That's all right. I don't, again, it's for a cigar smoker like yourself. Even for me, it's hard to pick just one because we're always smoking different ones. Like I smoke them to review them. And I'm smoking 2 or 3 a day now. How many are you up to a day?
Well, about 6 months ago, I had some heart problems.
Oh no!
And which was a total surprise. So I didn't smoke for about 2-3 months, which was fucking insane because I was smoking 3 a day.
Yeah.
And now I'm back up to maybe 4 or 5 a week. But it was, it was a lot more than that. Yeah. But you know what? When you cut down on your cigar smoking, you really enjoy the cigars a lot more. You enjoy the flavor a lot more.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Like if you don't smoke for a couple days and then you have a really good cigar, the flavor is incredible.
Yeah. I just got over COVID about 2 weeks ago. And so when that was done, I hadn't had a cigar in probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I smoked and I was like, God, this is so good.
Yeah. When I started smoking, I didn't smoke for like 2-3 months. So when I had my first cigar, it was like the best tasting thing I ever had in my life.
Yeah. So everything's good though with the heart now? Like your health, you're in good health?
Yeah. I'm on medication. I'm absolutely fine.
Good.
Feeling very good.
What's next for Tommy Zman? Like, what do you have coming up? Like in the show notes, I'll put the link to Cro-Magnon. I'll put the link to TommyZman.com so that people can easily find it, click on it, see what you're up to, see some of the stuff that you've had going on in the past. But what's coming up for Tommy?
Well,
in the near future?
it's weird because several things I was working on for quite some time all ended. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not under contract with anybody. But out of the blue, these two things have come up with very well-known cigar people that I may be working with, and I think they'll be incredible. And once I actually do it, I'll tell you about it. I'll come back on and tell you about it.
Absolutely.
It feels good to be relieved of the legal stuff. And every one of those cigar guys I talked about all wrote me and said they were so happy for me. And they felt so good for me. And a real good friend of mine are you familiar with Matty Rock?
Oh, yes.
From online. And Matty's been tremendous in not only being a friend during it all, but when people would speak badly with me, he would like destroy them and say, you have no idea what you're talking about. And so it was really good. And well, I tell you, that first year of COVID, it doesn't even seem like that year existed.
Just a blur, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, last year and this last year has been different, but that whole year of COVID it was a blur. I can't even think of what went on or what I did or how I got by. Thank God I was doing all that work for Copperfit, which paid me well. They treated me great. They were such good people. But I think when COVID started, I lost 4 major accounts.
Jeez.
Alec Bradley being one of them, just because people weren't doing anything, spending money. But I think it's coming back big time, don't you?
I do. I think it's coming back. I think that we're starting to see, honestly, I mean, with the second cigar boom, I think you'll see a lot of things start to come back. The events are starting to come back. People are getting back out there. So yeah, it's, you're back. So I'm
back. I am back.
So I think with all these things, it's a good time to be a cigar smoker. I mean, it really, really is.
It's a great time, I think, to be a cigar smoker, because everybody's feeling so good about where things are going and headed. Maybe not with the southern border or with price increases.
No.
And a few other horrible things that are going on.
Yeah.
I've talked about who I don't like talking about with that. But things are going on that are really good. Yeah. I think that the Florida and the Texan governor have done amazing. I mean, I saw how COVID numbers are so low in Florida, yet he opened up the state way before anybody else did at 100%. How is that? I think DeSantis is great. I love him. And, I also like Marco Rubio because he's become really pro cigar and really has tried to help the business and try to help government understand the business.
Yep.
So, I like.
Yeah, there's not a lot of understanding in government when it comes to a couple different things. Second Amendment, and tobacco just being the two that come to mind immediately, where typically congresspersons and senators have no idea what the fuck they're talking about.
They have no idea. Absolutely no idea. And there's a couple of things, but I think that things are going really well. As far as COVID starting to go away, and unless they come up with some bullshit third wave of fucking alligator COVID or
alligator
dinosaur COVID or whatever the fuck they come up with.
Right.
But you know what? Dude, am I wrong? Do you see the guys on the right coming up with that stuff?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong for sure. But I mean, so I typically leave people's politics, like your personal politics. I don't care, right, wrong, or indifferent. Like I don't give a shit. Live and let live is what I say. But I've been vaccinated and I got COVID. So, huh?
Yeah, well, I had got COVID 2 months after I was vaccinated, but I got over it very fast. I mean, like lightning fast. I don't know about you.
2 weeks. Took me 2 to 3 weeks to get over it, and I lost my sense of smell, my sense of taste, everything.
It took me about a week or so before, like, I had no symptoms whatsoever.
Wow.
Did have problem with some loss of taste, but other than that, my heart doctor, who I go to regularly, told me that he thinks without question that the fact that I had the shots is why I got over COVID so fast. He said he's seen it in so many patients. I didn't know if I believed him or not, but I'll take it.
Yeah, we put our trust in people that we hope are smarter than us. Hope.
Oh, everybody's smarter than me, but
well, you and me both.
But I just have those good looks and a big Johnson. So.
Really, in life, you can't ask for much more. Tommy Zman, welcome back. I'm glad you're back. It'll be fun to see what's going on, and when you're able to talk about the 2 new projects that you've got coming up, come back on the show. We'll talk about those. We'll highlight that, and we'll talk some more. And maybe, who knows, we can talk about alligator COVID and your huge Johnson, plus your foray into porn many years ago.
Boy, you've got me down, Pat. That's cool. Yeah, I tell you what, if one of these things come through that for the cigar business, they'll be pretty awesome. So I'd love to share it. But no, I think you do a really good job doing this.
If coming from you, that's a compliment. I appreciate it.
I really do. I think you do a really good job. Very pro. And I think you can grow pretty big.
Thank you. I hope so as well. But you know what? I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your kind words. I know that some of the stuff we've talked about today has not been the most fun things to talk about, but I think there were things that needed to be said. I'm glad we were able to get them out there and set the record straight with what happened a couple of years ago. And I'm glad everything is taken care of and it's done. And you're good. And everything's expunged.
I'm 100% innocent, and there are no charges on me in the court system. They've been erased, and I think that says a lot, doesn't it?
I think it says I think it speaks volumes. They don't go to that length to like expunge your record very many times. Like there are. Like, okay, you were charged, you were dismissed because it was dismissed for whatever reason. They don't typically go back and expunge the record. So for them to do that and say this, it's like, make it like it never happened. Like I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah. I think they know they really fucked up.
Yeah.
Putting that in the report, in the court report that they said to me should have never been in there. And when their arresting officer says that to you, that was like a holy shit moment.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy.
Good. Tommy Zman is back. He is available. If you want to see some of his work, TommyZman.com. Again, in the show notes, you can check it out. Go to Cro-Mag Nation. If you're
on
cigars
Facebook.
On Facebook. Yep. The link will be in the show notes as well. Check it out. Like I said, Tim Allen without the Coke. It's very man oriented. It's meat. Anti-vegan, pro woman in the best possible way. And it's a great site. It's a great group on Facebook. Check it out. Cro-Mag Nation. Tommy Z, thank you again, sir. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much, dude. I really enjoyed this. And I hope that COVID is now over. And hope I get laid more. That's all I think.
You and me both. And that's gonna do it here for this episode.
That's a good ending, right?
It is. It absolutely is. It's perfect. Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
You're welcome. Thanks, Steve.
Join me next time, where I'm not quite sure what I'll be talking about yet, but I promise it'll be Simply Stogies. Stay smoky, friends.
Thank you for listening to Simply Stogies. Please rate and review Simply Stogies on iTunes. You can follow James on his cigar journey on Instagram at Simply Stogies Podcast, all one word, and on Twitter at the Twitter handle at Simply Stogies.